we are now going to turn it over to Alexeraye, and we are so welcoming and excited for this presentation. So go ahead and take it over.
Wonderful. Thank you so much for everybody for joining today through the International Nanny Association. And thank you also, INA, for this opportunity to serve our community on a on a broader level. And if you are watching this on YouTube, feel free to check the link in the bio for additional resources, a little introduction into who I am and what I do. So really quickly here, I train caregivers of children in yoga and mindfulness practices, and I use yoga as a way of play therapy to work with the cognitive functions of the brain. And we can use yoga to play, which is the name of the game when we're introducing a bigger concept like mindfulness, not only to ourselves as adults, because we ourselves are learning these things, but also to the children that we care for. And I believe that yoga is a really, really great and accessible way, an equitable way for folks to be able to connect with their body and to find body awareness. And so I'm going to show some slides here in just a little bit, and we're going to kind of go through them, chat about mindfulness, what it is not, and we're also going to practice a little bit. So I know this is a Saturday, so thank you so much for joining us. If you're not watching this on a Saturday, you're probably watching it in between giving snacks to kids or wherever you might be today. So do the best you can to keep yourself safe. If you happen to be driving, please don't close your eyes when I prompt you to close your eyes. The idea here is that we're just kind of embodying and taking a moment of rest. And so I recognize that we have all come from different places and we're doing different things where it got to us in this meeting, particularly here. So let's just make a mindful transition, if we might. So wherever you are, find a posture that feels comfortable, that feels safe in your body. Maybe even just roll your shoulders forward and backward. Maybe it's the first time today you create a little space between your shoulders. Take a big deep breath in, roll the shoulders up towards the ears, and then just squeeze the biceps, the forearms, and the wrists. I know that sounds funny. And then exhale, roll them back, soften everything, relax. And we hang on to so much tension in our shoulders and our neck. And we hang on to our body. There's a really great book, by the way. It's called The Body Keeps the Score. And it talks about how our body hangs on to the stressors that we live through on a day-to-day basis. And this idea here is that through mindfulness is that we can access a place of awareness, a place of being present in each and every moment, whether we're washing our hands, eating our food, or even listening to this particular recording or this Zoom call right now. And the idea is that we want to train the brain to continually come back into a place of just recognizing where we're at in this present moment, not in thoughts that are around the past or the future. So often in life, what we anticipate coming doesn't often come, right? And it will surprise us when it does. So the more that we can refocus our brain to focus on one thing and one thing only, it kind of allows us to soften into the present moment. So once again, find that awareness in your body, maybe even noticing your shoulders stacked over your hips. You could even wiggle your feet on the ground right where you're at, a little grounding in practice, and then rest the hands on the tops of the knees or the thighs. And then just take a moment to maybe even rest the eyes. Of course, if you're driving or doing anything else, keep those eyes open, but allow the body to turn into this internal landscape, this recognition of a space within ourselves that we have so much to learn and explore. I'm just going to ask you to take 3 big deep breaths with me. 1 full inhalation in through the nose, and 1 long exhalation back out. Good. And almost imagine that breath on the next inhale. Imagine the breath entering in through the nose, expanding through the ribs and the low belly. And then as we exhale, that belly sinks back in towards the spine. Notice that the ribs soften and the breath escapes the nose or the mouth. Let's make that last and final 3rd breath just a little bit deeper. Take a big deep breath in, where you support the immune system on the inhalation. And long exhale back out, empty all the air out in your body. And that really just massages that nervous system quite literally up and down your spine. Good. And then wiggle the fingertips, the toes, and flutter the eyes open. Thank you so much for participating in that mindful transition. And that's a mindful transition that we could take anytime, right? So before we go and we walk into our jobs on a Monday, right? We don't know what their world might have been like. And we can make a mindful transition for ourselves to prepare our mind, our body, and our brain to be open, or growth mindset, if you will, as we walk in and approach into that space. We could also do that before we pick up the kiddos, and then incorporate model and embody that behavior with the kiddos when they get into the car and we're picking them up, or in between meals. These mindful transitions allows the brain to reset rather than taking everything we were carrying before and walking into our present moment with it. And then it's a combination of stories that are defining our happiness, our joy, our regret, whatever the story is that ruminates in the head, which is pretty fascinating. Any questions so far that does anybody have? Okay, so I'm going to prompt occasionally inside of this presentation for you to open up if you have any questions. But if you have something really, really pressing that might be on the mind, feel free to pop it in the chat. And at the end of this session, we'll have plenty of time to be able to go over those questions. And of course, in my mindfulness memberships, as well as for the Nanny Om Zone, I call them Nanny Om Zone, a place where you can rest, a place where you can connect with your body through yoga and also mindfulness. And you can come into those spaces and kind of explore what it feels like to sit with yourself for the first time. I hold these live and in person, and I also do the training. And when I take when we do the training together, we really talk about the brain and we go into much more depth than we're going to go here. But here we're here to have some fun and learn a little something new. Okay, so thank you again, INA, for this opportunity to serve you and your chapter in Minnesota. It is a wonderful, wonderful way to connect. I myself am also a member of the INA, and I'm very grateful for an organization that brings together so many nannies in one space to not only educate, but inform and support, which is really beautiful. I am the CEO of the Mindful Nanny Collective and the Mindful Care Collective. I started this about 6 months before the pandemic, and I am so grateful that I started it because this resource has been absolutely invaluable to caregivers around the globe, and it created an opportunity where I could do this virtually and support more people. I've been working at Nike for the last 5.5 years, teaching leaders and corporations in these same practices, and I was really, really passionate about bringing this to caregivers of children. My whole goal for this particular webinar today is to talk about wellness and productivity as a nanny in the workplace, which is really, really important. My biggest mission and my goal is to serve at least 1 million nanny and parent teams to help the next generation of caregivers and children thrive in our ever-changing world. So again, we both offer these monthly memberships and then 2 live virtual trainings per year to support nannies in these practices. And I also support nanny agencies as well. Let's talk a little bit about mindfulness and why it's so important that as nannies that we incorporate this, because it is being implemented in major education and corporate systems across the globe. The timeline of mindfulness studies, this is a quick rough draft of this space, but around 1979 is when mindfulness was formally introduced as a medical intervention by John Kabat-Zinn, who I've had the pleasure of not only learning under him directly, but also additional other teachers that were trained directly with him at UMass. And he started the mindfulness-based stress reduction program at the University of Massachusetts Medical Center. And since then, hundreds of medical centers, hospitals, and clinics around the world have adopted mindfulness practices to reduce pain and stress in patients. And now mindfulness is being introduced to schools around the world. Now, I wanted to mention this here because I'm also dyslexic. I'll be reading this out loud, so you're always welcome to just kind of close your eyes if that's your learning style and absorb that space inside your brain and use that kind of the picture method to be able to support you. Additionally, these are also on the slides. If you want to pause them on YouTube at any time that the INA is uploading this through, feel free to do so. And if you have any questions, feel free to pop them in the chat or email me at themindfulcarecollective@gmail.com. In the early 2000s, schools across the US and UK are offering mindfulness practices into everyday classroom life with students, which is amazing, by the way. And studies show that after the course, 80% of the 7th graders calmed down more easily when upset, 58% focused better in class, 40% used it to avoid arguments or fights, and 34% said it raised their grades, and 86%, this is my favorite, 86% of kids said that they should learn more mindfulness. And I love when children tell us what they need. It is our responsibility to do what we can to provide a future that is supportive of that space. And I love that kids were like 86% of them said we should be doing this. And then similar results were found in the survey of nearly 1,000 students who learn mindfulness at 8 other schools. There's a really, really wonderful program that I have trained under. It's called Mindful Schools. They have some amazing documentaries. So after you're done watching this quick YouTube webinar that we're going to have here, we're not going to go past 30 minutes. It's kind of my goal. So if that helps you give yourself a timeline, feel free to check out the documentaries on that Mindful Schools has. And that's actually on my website at themindfulcarecollective.com. I've got a bunch of resources, books, tools, resources for you there. And you can check out that documentary there, which actually brought me to tears. It's like one of those you want to get like a friend together, or another nanny friend together, get some popcorn. It's like 60 minutes and just like look at the awe of these children and what they're doing. Okay, 2015, stress-related health problems. So the studies really started kind of coming into fruition through bigger educational systems. So Harvard, for example, took on this really long study, and we actually just finished a 20-year study. I believe it was conducted by UCLA just last year in April, right as the pandemic was hitting, which is kind of wild. The stress-related health problems are responsible for up to 80% of visits to the doctor and account for the third highest healthcare expenditures, behind only heart disease and cancer. And I think that, but as nannies and as caregivers of children, it's almost our responsibility to maintain our own stress, maintain our own juggling of all the responsibilities that we take on. And we so much so of what we do is we bring in this kind of peace into the space that we work in. And I've often heard this from other nannies, and I've often heard it from the families that I've worked for, is that somehow my presence is balancing their presence. And we can really speak to these mindfulness practices, whether you take my trainings or my mindfulness or not, or my monthly memberships or not. The whole idea here is to get curious about mindfulness and how you can support the families you care for in that space. I thought this was interesting, but as few as 3% of doctors actually talk to patients about how to reduce stress, which is exactly what my program does. Then they took this program and they implemented it into Aetna, which employees who participated in the company's mindfulness programs and enjoyed a 28% reduction in stress, 20% better sleep. That's huge. 20% better sleep, that's huge, and 19% less pain, as well as an increase in worker productivity worth an estimated of $3,000 per employee per year, which is kind of wild. Now, this company, after doing this study, offers free yoga and meditation programs to its employees. And my whole sole goal is to get these into nanny agencies as much as possible and create this wellness programming for nanny agencies, for nannies, and for families. So you can have a whole care team around these children, not only modeling, but embodying this behavior, which is amazing. And having these conversations and recognition within other community that we're not alone in what we feel when we're raising children. And I think that that's one of the most important parts of the brain, is to feel seen and heard, and like what we have to say matters. As we look at 2021 and read this, go ahead and find your mindful seat again, find the awareness of your body, just kind of training that brain again, say, oh yeah, that's right. My mind might've went here or there or whatnot. And we can refocus our brain, just training it over and over again. And about 2021, to better help teachers and school administrators support the mental well-being of their students, the Cigna Foundation partnered with Mindful Schools, I mentioned them earlier, and provided them with a $750,000 grant to fund mindfulness intervention programs for school-age children. So if we have the capability as nannies to be the back burner at home, their foundational piece, whether it's before children go off to preschool and we start to teach them mindfulness practices, they're going to be really set up for success, and they're going to set up their community around them up for success, whether that's their teacher, it's fellow students, it's fellow friends, breathing techniques to be able to calm the mind, the body. And then if we look at all of these statistics here of what these children already experienced in an 8-week series, and we take the back burner of being a nanny and we say, wow, we could really implement this space in a family home. That's what I want to train you to do. So we're setting our next generation up for a success as much as possible, but also learning to care for ourselves. And 99% of mindfulness is all about embodying it yourself. And so that's why I train you guys first to, in an 8-week, 100-hour program that's all virtual, to embody that space yourself first, because we really can't speak to something unless we've experienced it, right? Unless we've gone through it ourselves. Okay, so moving along. I love this idea of mindful nannies, and just creating this space where we have a decrease in our overall anxiety, our overall, and improving our own relations, improving our own communications within the nanny home and outside of the home, and with our own partners. 80% of the nannies that have taken my trainings through the Mindful Nanny Collective have experienced reducing their stress by 80%. I was just so shocked. I wasn't even sure that when I did this training, I knew that I had felt this in myself when I started implementing it, in my own leadership roles at work, and then also as a nanny and in my own life. But it was really, really neat to hear that they have experienced the same thing. Improve their relations within the nanny home and outside of the home with their own partners and business employees. And I felt a greater sense of ease on a day-to-day basis, no matter what the childcare day in and day out responsibilities included. When we talk to families, mindfulness, which was inclusive, I need to fix that right there, of all beings, no matter your background, your ethnicity, or your religious beliefs. So the fact that, in fact, science says that for people who are diagnosed with autism and ADHD after an 8-week program, their work and school studies performance greatly increased by 11%, with awareness that their focus and their overall well-being greatly improved. And also improved for those around them, which I found really fascinating within those family dynamic homes. So mindfulness can be equitable even if you have a child that you care for that falls on the spectrum of any kind, which is pretty amazing. And if you yourself as well too. I've had a few students that struggle with ADHD, and they found that this actually really improved their functions, but at least they were able to focus an additional 15 minutes longer than they felt like they were before. And they felt like they actually, it really sunk in deep rather than kind of being something that was something that they had to struggle to work to understand, which was it's that brain training and focusing on one thing and one thing only. All right. So I'm going to give you 3 tangible, easy steps to develop a consistent mindfulness practice today so that you can take a little nugget with you. And you don't have to take my training. You don't have to do the mindfulness memberships if you don't want to. But if you do these 3 things just for yourself, because you truly deserve it, it might help be able to support you today in your own mindfulness practice. And I'm all about creating daily wellness routines through small moments, because that's when true change happens. And you look over, I'm always talking about taking 365 steps, 1 step a day towards the goals and the future of who you want to become. Okay, so step number 1, again, find your mindful seat. Check in with your body. How you feeling? Do you need a drink of water? I'm going to take a little drink. A big part of being a caregiver is also caring for yourself and learning how to care for yourself. And that can most often happen through the awareness of our body and what our bodies are telling us. So step number 1, feel free to take a screenshot of these if you want to. First, start simple. Really start simple. Pick 1 activity a day that you can explore with your full attention. So perhaps that's brushing your teeth, or maybe that's washing your hands, and just choose to connect with those sensations, the water, the bubbles, rather than the thoughts around the action. Be the action. So I see this like teacup here, right? I'm just going to replay this again. And it's interesting, like if we're just to watch this and put our full attention and focus, just imagining yourself doing this. Right? So just being with each little moment itself. It's as simple as that. Additionally, if you're brushing your teeth or you're in the shower, I'm going to use in the shower because that's the most common one. We're all in the shower, and I don't know about you, but I'd be washing my hair and I'm thinking about the traffic. I'm running late. I'm thinking about a past conversation I had with my partner. I'm thinking about my to-do list, my expectations. And mindfulness can bring us into the present moment by shifting our awareness and our focus and feeling our feet on the ground, feeling our hands through our hair, feeling the bubbles, and just being present in this moment, right? This allows us to become the observer of our thoughts through time and consistency, rather than becoming a life of living through every single thought that comes in, which is not always reality. And we explore that in a lot of depth in the training. Because it's a very common thing. I'm going to move this over here so I can see our little faces here. Okay, number 2. Secondly, stopping to take a mindful breath throughout your day. So this can really strengthen our ability to focus on one task or goal at a time. So if right now you've already found yourself distracted, I can feel my brain getting distracted by little bird sounds here in Hawaii. I can hear the kiddos upstairs that I nanny. And what we can do is refocus with awareness of our body. I can feel my feet right now on the ground. I can feel my shoulders stacked over my hips. And then I can use that breath to refocus. So just as we did in the beginning of class, let's take a big deep breath in. Big long exhale back out. Let's do that 3 more times. Big deep breath and feed that beautiful brain on the inhalation. And soothe that amygdala on the exhalation. Soften out the breath. Good. 2 more times. Big deep breath in. Longest breaths. And then exhale, let it all go. Good, last one. Inhale, biggest breath yet. Nice long exhale back out. Let it all go. Good. So these little moments where we can take a mindful transition to focus, you might even feel a little calm in your body, and you really are doing so much work within your breath to your brain and your body. It's pretty amazing. We learn that in depth about what we're doing to the executive functions of the brain in my training. And I've trained under Dr. Dan Siegel in his interpersonal neurobiology courses. I've taken courses at UMass. I've trained under a teacher for 2.5 years. So I forgot to mention my education before, and I apologize for that. It's really important that you have a deep education. I'm also trauma informed in mindfulness practices as well. So if you do have some trauma in the body, that's something we speak to before the training even begins. And we work with that through the training. Okay, so today, try allowing your intention and curiosity to focus on the rise and the fall of your breath. And then challenge yourself to keep this focus for 1 or 2 minutes, 3 times throughout your day. So simply feel and settle into the sensations of the breath. And we can ask ourselves questions like, what is rising and falling here? Take a big deep breath in here. What's rising and falling? Oh, the chest and the shoulders. That's interesting. Okay, awareness of the body. What parts of your body can you soften, relax, and release on the exhale? And I'm going to prompt you to do that in just a little bit. We'll talk about that soon. Often, we don't even realize how much we're hanging on to. Okay, and number 3, the last one. Lastly, bring your awareness to your thoughts without judging them. So simply become an observer of your thoughts as if they were clouds in the sky. And don't worry, I know this sounds like kind of out there right now. We're going to practice this in a moment so you really understand what happens to come up in the body. And then you're going to understand why I am kind of preaching that you have to embody the practice in order to understand it. And in this space where we are observing our thoughts through time and consistency, and kind curiosity, you may come to find out that not all of our thoughts are reality. And we can get a little carried away from time to time and lost in the story of our thoughts. And maybe, just maybe, we could simply see them and then learn to let them go. So we'll practice real quickly here. Find the awareness of your body. We're going to practice a productivity exercise for the brain. And then what I really would love to invite all of you guys to do is to turn your screen on if you feel inclined. If not, bring yourself, if you're doing things around the house or whatnot, bring yourself back into your chair. Find that mindful seat, that mindful posture, which is the step 1, awareness of our body. And then step 2, we're going to find the awareness of our breath. And we're just going to notice how your shoulders stack over your hips. Your hands will rest on the tops of the knees or the thighs. And just follow my words best you can. Go ahead and close your eyes. Soften the gaze. And if lowering the gaze feels safer for you, feel free to do that. This just allows us to turn into that internal landscape so we're not distracted by external visuals. As we take a big deep breath in, just notice breathing in, I calm my body and mind. And breathing out, I smile. Dwelling in the present moment, and I know this is the only moment at hand. Let's take 3 more breaths here. Take a big deep breath in. Notice that breath. Almost picture that breath. Maybe it's your first time today, this week, or this month where you're picturing that breath. And big, long exhale back out. Soften the body. On the next inhale, bring focus, awareness, and attention towards the muscles around the eyes. And as you exhale, you might even notice how tight they are. Just soften the muscles around the eyes here. They don't have to work. They don't have to do anything. And then take a big deep breath in through the jawline, the upper jaw, the lower jaw. And as you exhale, maybe even let that jaw fall kind of heavy here. Soften the entire face. So, in these moments where we're breathing, where we start to notice that we've been hanging on to something that we don't have to, parts of our bodies that don't have to work or stress themselves out. Then take a big deep breath in through the right side of the shoulder. And as you exhale, soften that right shoulder just a little bit more, drop it, let it fall a little heavier. And now you may even notice the subtle difference between your right shoulder and your left shoulder. And when we allow parts of our body, our stories, our mind, the things that we've gone through in life feel seen and heard, they feel tended to, much like our right shoulder does. And when they feel unseen, unheard, and undervalued, they might feel like our left shoulder does. So let's take a big deep breath in and relieve that space on the left shoulder, and a deep exhale back out. Let that left shoulder drop a little heavier. Good. And now notice this place of balance, where your body's just resting in this place of awareness of not only the body, but then of the breath. And now we're going to just amplify this practice a little bit more. We're going to go into the productivity practice today. So, with our eyes still closed, still finding this awareness of our body right where we've been, notice your breath and put your full focus, attention, and awareness on this breath. And this practice will only last about 3 to 4 more minutes. And so, just allow your body to focus on the inhalation and the exhalation of each breath. And you could almost picture this breath breathing in through your nose. Let the belly get really big on the inhale, and then exhale, belly sinks back towards the spine. Let the whole body soften. Now, what I'm going to challenge us to do today is to, again, only put your focus on the breath. But anytime a thought comes into the mind, simply raise your hand. Let the thought go, just knowing and simply becoming that observer of the thoughts. The hand can come back down toward the knee of the thigh, and bring your focus, attention, awareness back to your breath again. And then again, when a thought comes, because it will, whether it's about body sensations or food or sounds, or just simply raise the hand, observing that thought, and then practicing letting that thought go, bring yourself back to observing only your breath. And so let's begin doing that here. Good job. Nice. Let's do that for about 4 to 5 more breaths. Just here for a short time. You're doing really good. Just simply becoming that observer when the thoughts come in. And then we just gently escort ourselves back to the breath and focusing on the breath, just as we would a child when they get distracted. We just gently guide them back to the practice at hand. Good, wonderful. Begin to wiggle the toes and the fingertips. Take a big, long inhalation in through the nose. And we're muted here. So on the exhale, you could just sigh it all out. And then wiggle, wiggle the shoulders, maybe moving them, or maybe allow the right ear to come over towards the right shoulder. I invite you, if your eyes open, just close them once more. Maybe give yourself a little space by breathing in through the left shoulder. Exhale, drop that shoulder once again, and then allow the chin to come down towards the collarbones, left ear towards the left shoulder. Create some space between that right shoulder and the shoulder blade. Take a big deep breath in. Big long exhale back out. Take as many or as little kind of rounds of the neck as you need to. And then when you're done, find that awareness of the body again, stacking the head right over the tailbone, feeling the feet beneath the ground. And go ahead and flutter your eyes open and just take a gaze and a look around the room that you're in right now. And what I'm going to offer you to do is to find something that brings you ease and joy. It could be a simple art piece. It could be the way that the light filters through the room, a particular flower, or just a color on the wall. And allow yourself to put your focus there, similar to what we did with our breath. And just allow yourself to understand what this thing is or this item is that is bringing you joy by simply observing it. Allow yourself to feel that. Because so often in life, we allow ourselves to permeate on emotions or thoughts or tendencies that aren't filled with joy. And often, just like we need to train the brain to focus, on one thing and one thing only, sometimes we have to train the brain to sense into joy and curiosity. Good, wonderful. Now let that go and know that you can access that at any given time. You could access that when you're talking to a nanny employer, right? And we maybe feel unseen and unheard. And this is a space where we can find our feet beneath the ground. So our brain becomes centered, our brain becomes focused in the conversation and not hijacked through the amygdala, flying back all of the logic part of our brain is the beginning. Actually, I'm gonna recalibrate this for a second. So we've all kind of been here as caregivers of children, or even in our own primary relationships if you're no longer a nanny. And we have maybe somebody who triggered something and said something that we thought, gosh, like I'm gonna take this off the screen share. I feel really unseen and I feel really unheard right now. And what's happening in this beautiful brain that we have here, and the more we know about it, the better. We've got our logic part of our brain right here. And all of this beautiful blood is just flowing through here and helping us, support us. And when we feel unseen, unheard, and what we have to say doesn't matter, or we feel hijacked or triggered, our amygdala flips back, which is kind of flipping our lid, and all of the blood from our logic part of our brain rushes back to the fight or flight part of our brain back here. And when it's coming back here to our fight or flight, we can't have the productive conversations that we need to have. We are not in a space where we can think logically through that executive function of our brain. And it takes some time to soothe that amygdala so that it can come back down and say it's okay. And all of the blood from the fight or flight can come back into the executive functions of the brain and the logic part of the brain, where we store our emotions, our memories, our sensations. And the more we're doing this, the less productive we actually are in our jobs, whether that be with our children, our partners, our nanny and bosses and employers. So, and it takes about 20 minutes to get that blood all the way back here, which is really fascinating. So the faster we can recognize the awareness of our body and recognizing when we've been triggered, the faster we can soothe that amygdala and keep that blood as much as possible here in the logic part of our brain. And we're actually able to shrink that amygdala and that fight or flight response and expand our hippocampus part of our brain, which is responsible for our emotions and our memories and all of those spaces. So it's really more than just sitting down and it looks like this, right? That is mindfulness meditation, I would say. But mindfulness is a day in and day out relationship with yourself. And when we choose to connect with a relationship with ourselves, we can connect with so many other people so much more effectively. We can see and hear our children. We can be a group of adults that our children feel seen and heard and understood by, which is incredibly important. And at this particular time in our history of our world, now more so than ever, everybody wants to feel seen and heard, and what they have to say matters. And in the spaces in between, we have so much more in common than we could ever imagine. And when we can come into a place of calmness, awareness, and understanding of our own beliefs, of our own subscriptions, of our own life stories, then through that sense of curiosity, we can then connect with others in a really kind and compassionate way and see the differences that we all have, but so many of the similarities that we all have at the same time, which is incredibly important that our children learn how to have those difficult conversations. But we have to learn how to sit with ourselves first and have those difficult conversations. So thank you so much for participating in that mindful transition and that space of productivity. I'm going to invite us, if you have anything you'd like to share in that space of what was that productivity exercise like for you. And again, you don't have to turn on your camera, but if you would like to just share what that was like for you, that would be wonderful. Oh yeah, and I see in the chat, I like to take small mindful breath break before doing a stressful transition of the day with the kids, especially before bath time. Oh, that's a good one. Yeah. And we as caregivers of children, we know we can already feel like, okay, bath time might be a little difficult. We learn the ins and outs of our kiddos. Eating peas is going to be a difficult challenge today. And we really have to wait until Fun Friday, and that's when they can have pizza, or something like that. And we understand when that might come up in the body. So way to go on naming that.
Say for me, when doing these mindful breaks, it really just gives me the minute to focus on myself, because most of my day is always focused on other people and what I need to do for other people. And it's a time for me to care for myself and
Mm.
like taking care of myself.
Ooh, so important.
Mm-hmm.
And kids see this.
Mm-hmm.
They see what we're doing, and they want to so badly model everything we do. And it's been really interesting practicing all of this in my nanny home because when I forget, but because I've been modeling it for so long, the kids are teaching me, Auntie, take your mindful break. Or they see mom and dad stressed out,
Mm-hmm.
or mom and dad, however it might be, but they see them stressed out and they'll come over. And I've seen this so many times with the kids that I watch. The hand will go on the shoulder and then just take a big deep breath and a big exhale back. It's so powerful. And in that moment, that's what the parent needed. And they were just taught by this 3-year-old that they could do it. I mean, there's so much magic and power in modeling and embodying the behaviors we seek. And I am fiercely passionate about it, if you haven't been able to tell. So, some things, thank you for sharing that so much, Sarah. Thank you for sharing
Yeah.
that because it's so real. These transitions that we take are vitally important. Anybody else want to share what they came up with the productivity? And if not, I'll share what lots of other high executives and leaders have shared with me. Feel free to pop off your mute. I'll be watching. But I will say so much judgment has come into that space. Gosh, I got distracted so many times. I raised my hand so many times. And that I say, oh my gosh, congratulations for one, being vulnerable, two, being brave, and you're 150% not alone in that. I guarantee everybody in here has, and they maybe didn't want to speak to it, and everybody raises their hands. It's a space where we start to notice how often we judge ourselves, how often we monitor ourselves. And really, in those spaces, we can show up in kindness and compassion for ourselves and say, whew, that was a human moment. Bring myself back to focusing on the breath. I'm training my brain here. Okay. All right. So if there's no other comments, I'm going to move forward. We only have a few more minutes here, so just heads up, and then I'll share the link in the bio with what we've got going on. Okay, so we're actually at the end. So we've got, these are some of the graduates. You might actually recognize them on our wonderful social media platforms through the Mindful Nanny Collective. We've got Princess here and her business partner, Kate. They're both the nannies, doulas, caregivers, and business owners for about over 15 years. And they are now implementing this within Nanny in the City. Their own nanny agency is becoming a full-fledged Mindful Nanny agency. And so they are, because they've taken these trainings and they're so fiercely passionate about how it has changed their own nanny agency as business owners, nannies, and doulas. They're bringing in this whole platform into their agency, and all nannies are going to now be required going forward to take this training. We've also got Patsy Andal, Jessica Giambri, and then Anne Kearney. If you do not follow them, check out my Instagram. They're the most amazing individuals ever. They're tagged all over on my profile. You'll see their picture, and feel free to reach out to them. They're wonderful community members who love to build friendships. And I think one of the most important things that we can do within our nanny community is build friendships. And actually, Reagan, just recently, who's on this call right now, it's so great to see her, just joined the Nanny Home Zone membership. And this is a new membership that I started, and I'm really open to suggestions, support, whatever you may need. I really, really want to care for caregivers of children. That is my favorite thing to do in the world. So let me know how I can support you. And I'm really glad to have you, Reagan, and all you folks today for supporting and just getting curious about what mindfulness might bring you in your own careers as a nanny. This is a place where we can, Anne is the best. I saw the comment. She's the best. All of them are the best. And I've got like so many more too that I didn't want to take up the time to put on a screen, but they're all over on my social media. Just the work that they've been doing since this training is like unbelievable. Some of them have walked away from their nanny jobs and reestablished boundaries that really worked for them because they did the work to carve out the space of figuring out what kind of family they really wanted to work with and kind of visualizing that. And then they found it and they made a nice mindful transition out of that prior family. And it's actually a better relationship now, which is huge. Any questions about mindfulness at all? What can I support with? Or in general, in nanny world, just because I've been doing nannying for so long. Well, I want to thank you, each and every one of you. Out of all the places you could have been today, you chose to be here to support your curiosity, to connect with other members. If you ever have any questions, what I'm going to do is I'm actually going to pop this little link down here in the chat box.
Mm.
And we're also underneath I've been given this information to INA as well, so they should have it there. But you can check out the free subscriber hub that's there. I'm actually going to share this screen with you just so that you can see it. That way it's not like this, like lingering, like, what is that?
Mhm.
That's better for the brain. Okay, so this is our little, our membership website that I created. So you can kind of peruse around in here. There's a free subscriber hub. Highly suggest going in here. There's also some amazing diversity and inclusion resources from Nanny Miss Monique in here. Those are also included in my training. That's a big part of my training, actually. We've got free monthly caregiver coaching. So 2 times a month, we've got live Zoom calls. You can anonymously I apologize. You can anonymously submit your questions, any questions you ever have around childcare, working with nanny employers, taxes, anything like that. And then what I do is I have experts come on and we speak to those directly. If you're on the live call, your answer gets addressed first. And if not, if you're a part of the membership, they are going to be uploaded. That's a part of a new membership model I have. I'm super excited. Our Mindful Nanny Collective training is also available for parents. So if they are interested in that training, which can be really amazing to have a whole team that understands mindfulness, it's like greatly improved the nanny dynamic and care dynamic. Also, I offer webinars on how to introduce mindfulness and yoga to children because it can be so challenging. It is not like the adult classes that we would take. It is about play, 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 and fun, fun, fun. I also am partnered with 2 companies that are amazing. They're with doctors, they're with psychologists, and you can actually become certified preschool teacher as well, and also a certified children's yoga, and they add a little spin on it, mindfulness as well. Okay, so those are some options for you. Additionally, I do free childcare community meditations. Those are on Mondays. They're quick 15-minute sessions. The kids can be on in the background. They are recorded and then they're uploaded into the membership site. So lots of free different options for you guys there to explore, to get curious about. My whole goal is to make childcare support as accessible as possible. That's why we have the free community coaching calls, and then also meditation accessible for all for free. That's there, and then a whole list of resources for you. So those are great ways to connect it with not only your own community, share them with your friends, with your nanny families. And then if you have any questions, my contact information is right under that link right there, mindfulcarecollective.vipmembervault.com. Thank you so much, everyone, for today, for your time. And I think we wrapped it up pretty good, having a little start there. So